Hi, hello, and welcome back to another Skyblock video. My name is ohSauce, and today we will be talking about all of the different mainstream berserker weapons in Skyblock, and going over their uses, tips, tricks, and more. If you clicked on this video because you were looking for a video about which berserker weapons you should choose to play dungeons, this video will certainly help. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The upper limit of each weapon's floor is determined by damage, and the lower limit is determined by price, not the floor you can begin to get them on. So that means if it requires a carry, then it requires a carry, and you're gonna have to get a carry. Alright, let's start. So the first weapon and the baseline weapon that I would recommend for dungeons, if you're really gonna try and start grinding up through the floors, is an aspect of the dragons. Now this aspect of the dragons, or AOTD, is far from maxed. It's just a sharp one with telekinesis, but the AOTD, it's a good weapon. It's a solid mid-game, early mid-game weapon. It only costs 1 mil now, when it used to cost like 10 mil. So, much cheaper than it used to be and much more accessible for early game players. It's a great weapon for early game players. It can really do some damage for you. Now, it also works in dungeons for those first couple of floors. I know because, well, I used it and it worked out. You can go into a dungeon with strong and an AOTD on entrance floor and maybe even first floor, and you will survive just fine. But I would not go any higher than floor 2 because, well, it gets a little bit harder and you're gonna need something with more damage. Now when you get to floor 2, you can get something like an adaptive blade. Now the adaptive blade, as you can see, it adapts to the user. So basically if you're a berserker, then you're gonna have a plus 35 strength. And as you can see here, 225 damage or 535 damage. So the adaptive blade is better than the AOTD in dungeons. And it also costs less, coming in at only 700k. Only reason why I would recommend this one first is because it requires floor 2 completion. But if you can start off with an adaptive blade from a floor 2 carry that costs like 100k coins or something, even less maybe, then I would start off with this guy. And this weapon can go up to floor 3 and maybe floor 4. By then I would have gotten a carry for something better to be comfortable, but you can go all the way up to floor 4. So next up we have the Phantom Rod, and the Phantom Rod comes in at only 700k, and it is a great weapon for what it is used. The only requirement is you need fishing level 21, no catacombs requirements even to star it. And as you can see, when it's starred, it's much better than the adaptive blade, and it costs less, so pretty good. But it's not just any normal weapon, you see. No, the Phantom Rod is a fishing weapon, so it's ranged melee damage. As you can see, that did melee damage that it would have done if I just punched something, but instead I rotted it and it did that amount of damage. Ranged melee damage, and it can go pretty far. So here we have a golden ghoul, and I tried not to one-tap it, but I did. But if I didn't one-tap it, then basically it would stay hooked and it would not come off, and then you could left-click and it would continue doing melee damage. So all you have to do is hook it, and then you continue left-clicking as if you were punching it, and you'd basically doing ranged melee damage. It's really good. Now you can decimate pretty much any mini-boss with this. One that I used it for the most was Frozen Adventures, because those were the ones that did the most damage. But it can also work on bosses and mobs that just have too much health for you to kill in one hit. Yeah. Would highly recommend. Next up, we have the Warped AOTE. Now, I'm not actually going to recommend this weapon, because as you can see, the lowest price is 7.79 million. And the stats are plus 834 and plus 834. And then a little bit of crit damage as well. For only 1.3 million coins more, the Livid Dagger does 600 damage, less strength, about as much, or exactly as much crit damage, and it also has plus 100% attack speed, plus 100% crit chance, and plus 100% critical hits if you're behind and you backstab your target. That is so much better, and it's totally worth the 1 million coins more than the Warped AOTE. I would 100% recommend the Livid Dagger and 100% not recommend the Warped AOTE. Another thing that's really good about the Livid Dagger is that you can actually upgrade it way more than the other weapon. So if we were to find 5-star Fabled Livid Dagger, 800 damage, 500 strength, 500 crit damage, and yeah, so it's just much better weapon. I would not recommend the Warped AOTE. So that's it for Livid Dagger. Next up, we have the Flower of Truth. Now, if the Livid Dagger was a 10 out of 10, then the Flower of Truth would be a 15 out of 10. Because the Flower of Truth is quite possibly my most favoriteest weapon beside, well, you know. But basically what the Flower of Truth does is it's a normal melee weapon, so you can just normally hit stuff. But then you can also right-click and it'll hit 3 targets, doing each that same amount of damage, as you could just see. And it's quite spammable, although it does have a 1-second cooldown, so it's not crazy spammable, but you can still spam it enough to get lifesteal. And that's really one of the best things about this weapon, is its lifesteal gain, especially for berserkers. You can basically tank every single boss fight using the Flower of Truth. Even floor 7, but for floor 7 you might need some extra Necron gear or Gold Ore gear. But it can basically survive everything. And it has really good strength as well, that's like the biggest thing about it. So if you were to pair it with a Baby Yeti, which I no longer have because I'm a mage, then you get so much more EHP because of that extra defense. Now, this weapon gets even better if you put Withered on it. Basically, it gives it even more strength and makes it even more tanky when you're holding it. And then you can add some ultimate enchants and stuff too. But just to give you a taste of what this damage can do, with like 2/4 or even 1/4 Necron and the rest is SA, you can do like 17 million damage. Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty good. But there's one more weapon that's, well, better than it. And that is the Valkyrie. And now, this is not a Valkyrie, this is a Hyperion. And the difference between Valkyries and Hyperions is that, as you can see, Valkyries have ferocity. And the Hyperions also have ferocity, but the Valkyries have twice as much ferocity. And combining that ferocity with a 5-starred Valkyrie and like a tiger pet or something, dude, you hit like 3 times on every single hit, which basically means 300% damage. Valkyrie basically sacrifices some of the damage from Wither Impact, only my favorite ability ever, for some actual hitting damage, because as you can see here, the Hyperion, it doesn't do very much damage. If we were to compare it to the Flower of Truth, which is probably like 50 times cheaper or something, you can see that the crit automatically does more. 58,000. And the Valkyrie, or the Hyperion, 63,000. Only 5,000 more damage, plus the fact that you can use this ability of it to hit 3 things. Hyperion is not meant for the melee, although you can do the Mage Beam with it. And yeah, that's pretty much gonna be it for this video. If you enjoyed, feel free to like or even maybe subscribe. It really does help me out. And with that out of the way, I have nothing more to say. See ya!